Hello, everyone, and welcome to the future of space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Maraia Tanner. Maraia is an astrophysicist, aerospace engineer, and CEO of Star Harbor, which is aiming to be the world's first publicly accessible spaceflight training facility and cutting edge research and development campus for emerging technologies. Wow, Maraia, that is amazing. Welcome to the future space.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Where are you right now?
I am just west of Denver in Evergreen, Colorado.
Now, I know that this is going to come later, but we are May 20th. We're doing this recording, and I think that there's snow outside. Am I correct?
Yeah, this is. I just moved to Colorado in July, so this has been my first winter coming from California, real winter. And yesterday it was 80 degrees, and today we're expecting 1 to 2 feet of snow. It's an adventure living here for sure.
It's a little bit of a different environment. Are you happy to be there, though?
I am. I'm really enjoying Colorado. It having grown up in California, really almost all of my adult life. Well, actually, all of my life. Um, it's a new experience living in a different state, but it's been extraordinary.
Nice. All right, before we get into what you're working right now, Star Harbor, and the people that are behind that, involved, your board, I mean, it's amazing everything that you guys want to do. Could you share with us three words that for you capture the essence of space?
Hmm. I think for me, space is humbling, and it's mind bending, and it's motivational.
Motivational. I guess it's the incentive for a lot of people to go beyond, correct? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. I think for myself, and I would say for, the folks on my team and so many others in the industry, it's a motivator to be more, to do more, to see more than, we would if it weren't there. So
Were you always interested in space?
always. It's funny. I think most people grow up and when they're little, they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut. Um, I can never remember not wanting to go to space.
Even from the first time that you were able to go from walking on your floor to looking up. I mean, you got up literally so just that you could look up to the star, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember my first interest in space was probably around the time I was 5, and it's some of my earliest memories. Um, there was just an immediate desire to visit, to understand it. Not at 5, that came later. But like I was just fascinated with the stars and planets, and my mom, she talks about how I never really deviated from that. It was very, very clear, what was in my DNA. So,
So what happened after that first experience at 5 years old? Did you go to school with the intent to become an astronaut or a pilot or being an astrophysicist? Or so what was your journey between that 5 year old little um, looking up to the star baby to where you are today?
it's I think this is common for a lot of folks, especially of my generation, I guess. When I was a child, I would say, I want to be an astronaut. And, the adults around me would say, oh, that's great. Go for it. You can do it. And then you start to get a little bit older, you get into junior high, you get into high school, and you say you want to be an astronaut. And then the questions become, well, what's your backup plan? Like, is that really practical? There's only a few astronauts out there. Are you sure that's where you want to put your eggs in that basket? And so, I started to question a little bit, maybe if I should go in that direction. And right around the same time, I went to live abroad in Japan for a year. lived with the host family, and you know, really grew up a lot in that year. And while I was there, you know, I feel like I got a more global perspective of the world, and decided that, you know, my mission in life was going to be to save the planet. And you know, as a 16-year-old, you know, does. And you know, I came back and I went to school at Berkeley, and went in as a political economy of industrial societies major, and figured I was going to save the world through politics. And I just never really connected. I mean, I did fine in my subject and my classes, but I just never really connected with it. And when I was about a semester away from graduation, my mom, I called up my mom, and I said, "Mom, I'm struggling. I don't know how I'm going to get through this semester." And she was like, "Mariah, best advice I've ever gotten in my life. What are you doing?" You know, she was like, "Space is your thing. I don't know why you're wasting your time with this anyway." You know? So, and at the time, I don't know if it's still this way, but at the time, you had to finish your degree in 120 units. And so I opened up the Berkeley catalog, and I'm flipping through all the majors. And the only science major that fit within the 120 units, because of all the classes that I had, was physics. And so I declared myself a physics major. I had never taken physics before, didn't know anything about it, you know, but it was a core science. And so I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And as luck or fate would have it, I was pretty good at it, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with physics and astrophysics in particular, and it sort of took me back to, you know, my core interests and passions. And so I finished my degree in astrophysics, and then went into engineering, which is a whole nother story.
So you became an astrophysicist and then engineering, following the stars. But beyond that, and this is a question that I always want to ask people, what do you think is the human story of going to space? You're talking about saving the planet, but there's a lot of people that feel also divided with this. You know, it's either we go to space or we stay on Earth, or I personally believe that it's actually for the benefit of everyone. Even when your children leave the house, it's not to leave the parents in the dust. It's actually to elevate the family, but in different ways.
Right.
So what for you, from your perspective, is the human story of going to space?
Well, I think exploration is in the human condition. You know, I think that um, just innately we're not happy, you know, just staying inside our little bubble. You know, people, there's always going to be people who want to get out and explore, and learn and discover and expand. Um, and so I think, you know, first is just a natural calling, you know, but I really do believe that there are so many benefits to space for life on Earth. And in fact, you know, this is true for everybody on my team, and for so many others in the industry, is that, you know, like, being in love with space really means being in love with our own planet, you know. Um, and I think they're sort of inextricably intertwined. You know, you can't really separate out the two. Um, and I know, and we'll get to, you know, Star Harbor in a moment, but a huge part of our motivation is bringing the solutions, you know, from space to life here on Earth, to, you know, fix the things that we've broken, and improve the things that we can.
I think that fear of being left behind is not, it's not a story that is new. I mean, even back in the Great Migration of Europe, you know, you could read the newspapers and people were saying, oh, you know, why go over there? Like, why actually invest on when we have so many? Because Europe, I mean, Europe was in total
Mm-hmm.
shambles back in those days. And you could ask, what was the justification for the kings and queens to, you know, put their country in jeopardy? and not fix the issues that were there at that moment and send people across the
Mm-hmm.
ocean for like almost a doomed end. But even close closer to our family, when that brother or that sister leaves the family and goes to a different country, often the family behind is left like, well, you're the one who left us. Why is it that our village and our city is not enough for you? You feel the call. But from my
Mm-hmm.
background of spending time in nature, life inherently always tried to reach out. And I think the human species has become just the best ambassador to embody, to push those boundaries. But if, we started, life started on the planet, this, cellular level, and then it went from single cell to multi-cell, and it constantly pushed the boundaries and pushed the cracks and figure out how to move forward. And when it was in the ocean, well, that was not enough. It found a way to get out of the ocean, and some of them were not happy to be on the ocean, found their way back to the ocean, and we're up in the trees. And then I can only imagine the first times that the individuals who decide to go to leave the branches and start wander on the ground, the rest behind were not happy. It's like, why would you
Mm-hmm.
even venture into a place that has predators that are not, that are beyond what we can control? But we would not be here had this not happened. So life is constantly wanting to find these new destinations. And if it can't, it's not because it doesn't want to, it's just because it doesn't know how to do it. And so now that we have the technology to take life to the universe, from the perspective of the planet, it's been waiting for this moment for 4.6 billion years, where the planet's knowledge can be now taken to the universe and continue this, I think, this universal mission
Mm-hmm.
of connection, where life wants to connect in the universe in the same way that it expanded and connected on the planet. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. And I think that's a really beautiful way to take a look at it. Um, and I think that, exploring calls on us to, be better, to do more. It's, like you mentioned your time in nature. That's very much my I used to backpack and climb glaciers and scuba dive and everywhere I could get into nature I would do that. And every time you go out and you do that exploration, you have to learn new skills and become stronger and be curious, and those are all the things that are necessary for evolution.
And these new destinations always offer this opportunity to start fresh, to clean the slate with acquired wisdom and try not to repeat some of the mistakes. Not to blame the past, because I think the past
Mm-hmm.
tried to do its best. But even North America, we're not going to get into the debate that there were people here and then there was tremendous cost. But the people who left Europe did not want to replicate the same mistake. They wanted to leave the aristocrats behind, the kind of rigid structure. Then it led to what we are, the U.S. today, and then some of the great values that the country was built on. But everything has an arc, right? Everything has a journey, and now we're seeing the cracks in that. And we're looking to space, and the
Mm-hmm.
people, and some of the people, the values that we've identified now, we're looking into space to start that new foundation, to start from, and within the
Yeah,
constrictions of all the histories and the rigid structure that now has become more cumbersome than flexible. And this new destination is offering this opportunity. I guess that's one of the reasons why you're starting Star Harbor, correct?
absolutely. I think that there's a sort of an idealism that a lot of folks in the space arena uh, bring to bear in our relationships and in our businesses. And we sort of joke that we're trying to bring in business 2.0 or maybe even 3.0, where we're really people centered. Like I feel very strongly that, when you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers. So, like customers first. I mean, yes, maybe, I feel like if, I do my job and I take care of my team, they're going to take care of our customers, and so, and, having integrity in everything we do. It's not about eking out every cent or every dollar that we can from every transaction. It's doing things the right way with integrity, and really focused on how do we want the future to be, and then how do we bring that backward to today and behave in that way going forward. There's been a lot of criticism. You were talking about, the folks being left behind, saying, why are we spending these resources? Why are we taking this energy to go to new places when we've got, problems here at home? And I think that same argument is getting played out today in the space arena, right? Why are we spending money on rockets and spaceships when, we've got, hungry and we've got all the social issues that we're dealing with or not dealing with. And to that, I think there's a couple things that can be said. One, and I this is not my saying, and I don't believe it was Charlie Bolden's either, but it was the first time I had ever heard it. Was he'd said, there's never been a dollar spent in space. We don't spend money in space. All of that R&D and the manufacturing and the design and the engineering and whatever, that all happens at home. Those are jobs. The industry provides a tremendous resource, to the people who are enabling all of that development. So, and I thought that was a really interesting perspective, when looking at how money's getting spent. You take a look at the actual technologies and products that are being created. Like there's a couple partners that we're working with that are in the agri-tech space. They're looking at how are we going to grow food on the moon and Mars and on space stations, because we're not going to be shipping cows to Mars, right? So, how do we feed people? And a lot of those technologies, which are absolutely essential to life in space, are going to be critically important here at home as well. There are places around the country, we did a lot of work in Dubai, for instance. They import 100% of their produce. They have to find it, which means that they're entirely dependent on trade. If there's a breakdown in that system at any point, they're in trouble. And so, these are technologies that they're very interested in bringing back at home, and it's being solved for space. So, something Dr. Cy Proctor on our team always says, is solving for space solves for Earth.
Back in the 1900s, you had Edison, Tesla, and you had the Wright brothers, right? But at the same time, you had a bunch of diseases that were going up everywhere. There were a lot of social issues, and at so many points, one could have said, like, how ridiculous it is to try to power the world, to try to take the sky, while we have like real issues down on the ground. We have people dying. And while they did not specifically target some of the issues that they had back then, the world that they created actually took care of a lot of those issues, of that reality. And that is, if we were to live in a world where we ask of everyone to specifically just focus on some of the problems that we have today, well, then there would be no point for arts. There would not be any point and any reason to talk philosophy or to listen to music. Or if I remember correctly, in the Salesforce ad, Matthew McConaughey is an actor that does absolutely nothing in his life other than portraying roles. So in terms of advancing society, that's not really the best effort, to spend a life with. So it's life is a little bit more complicated than just saying it's a single issue and everything has to be focused on that. You need different perspective. You need to push in different places. So sometimes the solution is not exactly where you thought it would be, but it comes back and then it helps everywhere. And I one of the challenges that we've had on Earth is the incentive has been hard for people to process because there it's easy to I mean easy it's been easy to find resources. If I don't have my bread this morning, I can find another piece of bread somewhere else, in the corner store. When you go to space, you don't have a choice. The incentives are there's no place to waste. There's not You cannot just throw out your garbage. You have to figure out to recycle that atom of carbon over and over again. Once it gets into the spaceship, you want to keep it. You don't want it's already been processed on the Earth. You cannot go into a spaceship and say, "Oh, let's do a pit stop, swing by this planet and just resupply." No, you have to be fully contained. So I do believe that there's going to be major revolution of recycling and production of food that's going to trickle down to the earth and going to elevate, obviously, be at the benefit of everyone. So I guess you agree on that, right?
Absolutely. In fact, it's one of our leading priorities in building this big campus. We in October, we signed the purchase sale agreement for the 53 acres in Lone Tree, and we're really excited about the development and everything that's going to happen on the campus. And one of the challenges, because I like on the one hand, I have to build in order to create, Star Harbor and all the benefits that I know we're going to be bringing. On the other hand, I'm very much a tree hugger, and feel very, very strongly about, climate change and the challenges that are coming and in some cases are already here. And so, one of our priorities is trying to build out this campus and the Academy in particular in a truly sustainable way. And it's actually very, very complicated because, some of the systems, there are some new technologies out there that are really exciting and could, potentially take us off the grid and allow us to be more self-contained, sort of take that space station concept as far as we can in the development. But, you're limited to some extent by what the municipalities will allow, and so we're trying to, really push the envelope in, the materials we'll be able to use, the energy sources we'll be able to use, how we, recycle and reclaim water. But this is not, it's not your typical development. Developers don't usually ask for these things. They're levied on them, as opposed to, trying to push, the energy companies and the water companies and the cities and whatnot to do more. And so we're going through that process right now, and trying to find new technologies and materials and products and whatnot that can really allow us to build this out in a sustainable, like truly sustainable fashion.
So you're building a campus and you have this academy called Star Harbor. Tell us more about what do you intend to do at that campus? What is the overall mission? I'm thinking of Star Academy. I have in my head the movie with Harrison Ford, preparing for the invasion of aliens, but that's what you're going to be doing. So tell us what is the vision and what can we anticipate as the time goes by?
Sure. So, it's more Starfleet Academy maybe than So I would say, there's three primary pillars for the Academy business itself, and there's more going on around the campus. But the Academy is, there's space flight training. There's four primary pieces of equipment. We'll have a Boeing 767 for parabolic flight. We'll have a high gravity centrifuge, a hypobaric chamber for high altitude, low pressure, low oxygen environments, then a very, very large pool for underwater spacewalk, habitat, dive training. And right now we've modeled out about 20% of our business revenues coming from actual spaceflight preparation. And then there's another 20% that, we're projecting will be for the leisure market, space enthusiasts, adventure seekers, folks that just want to come in and see if they've got the right stuff. And then the remaining is really for R&D. All of these pieces of equipment are also very expensive, hard to get access to space analog and testing environments that are generally unavailable for small companies, aerospace startups, most often university researchers. So it's creating a bottleneck in innovation. And so we're going to be making these environments available to these organizations and individuals in order to try and move their products and technologies forward faster. And in that way, we're really looking to make a huge positive impact in the direction we're going and how quickly we get there.
Are you also going to focus on or have a program on making sure also that the spiritual aspect or that the students have a framework through which they can process the information that they're going to experience as they go up to space? Because I talk with a lot of people that have gone up, and some of the new astronauts they get the physical training, but they don't get the emotional and the spiritual training. And they go up there and it's so powerful and it's so bigger than themselves. And they find themselves weeks after that still trying to process it. And for me, one of the successes of William Shatner going up and coming down and being so in the moment is, here's someone who's been primed to express what he's going to experience. He's been in the industry, but it's also connected with the overview effect crowd, and he understand and he's a trained emotional person. That's what actors do. They have to take the emotion and they have to translate it in the moment. And so far, all the people that have been up to space, their training has been focused on the physicality of it. Can you do the engineering job? Can you make sure that physically you're going to be fine? But for the mind and for the experience, for the awareness, I think that now we're in the place that we need to recognize the importance of preparing. It's like, almost being a therapist. You go through trauma, you go through these ups and downs. And if you don't know how to frame those experiences, you can get trapped in those kind of negative cycles. Are you going to do that at the Academy?
You bet. In fact, I would say, the overview effect and its potential impacts are really the motivation. It's why Star Harbor exists. And in fact, when, okay, I'll take one step back and say, there's been a lot of criticism that, the commercial space industry is just, boys with their toys. It's a bunch of rich people getting to go to space, and to some extent, that's true for any new technology. It was true for cars and computers and airplanes. In the beginning, it's always the affluent who get first access, right? However, we don't necessarily have an issue with that in the beginning, right? Because, not only is that the way technology goes, but we want the billionaires, the CEOs, the royal family members, the people who have the resources and the networks to actually make a difference, to get up there and to have this overview effect experience, because they are precisely the folks that can really make a difference when they get home. And so, getting this overview experience into the hands of as many people as possible is really what was the impetus to create Star Harbor. And then, back in the early days when we first started, we did a very large business case, and we were told that probably only about 10 to 20% maybe of the people who came through the academy would actually get to go to space. And so we were like, well, how are we going to achieve our mission of getting this experience to people if they're not going? So that was when we started working with a group out of Florida called AOA, just a phenomenal group of people. And they've been huge champions of Star Harbor from the very, very beginning. They built Universal Studios. I'm sorry, they didn't build Universal Studios. They built Harry Potter World for Universal Studios and Star Wars World for Disney. And, they're considered, leaders in the thematic entertainment space. And brought them in to help us build this out, build the academy out as though you were in a space station. So when you're looking out the windows, you're not going to be looking out onto the plains of Colorado. You're going to be looking out onto, Earth. And for special events, maybe we'll go park out in front of Mars or Tatooine. But the idea is, to put people in this immersive environment, and train them, like you said, mind, body, soul. And we had a lot of conversations with Frank White, the author of Overview Effect, early on, and he had shared that, going with an intention and actually being prepared for having the experience helps enable the experience. Expectations are a huge part of that equation. And so, all of our training is going to be having these, core principles and setting folks up for the most extraordinary experience that they could have, so that they can bring that home and make a difference.
I mean, that's what really training is. I mean, even for the Army, for the Navy, for when you find yourself. I mean, I've been up in a parachute, free falling. There's a physicality that often is overwhelming, and you don't know what to do with it. The adrenaline rushes high, and then you kind of loses it. But it's once you start to do it more often, or that you have certain training, then that experience can be processed in a better way, where the survival mode doesn't overpower the experience, because obviously not everyone can keep going back up and get deeper in that experience. You want to try to get as much as possible in that first trial. And I know that there's a huge difference. I was talking to Jane about Space Perspective, where, for them, it's going to be 6 hours of gradual going up, and then you don't lose the gravity. And then, 2 hours at 100,000 feet plus, where you get the curvature of the Earth and the blackness of space. So you have 6 hours of storytelling where you can tell them, how to process the information. When you grow up on a rocket, it's like the G-force and then the zero gravity. So your body by default goes to that, because that's physical. That it's happening. You need to force yourself to look out the window and to remember where you're going, what's happening. So giving the training for people to know what to expect, so that they have the tools really, to negotiate with what's happening with them and what to do with it and where to go from there. I think that's a really commendable mission that you guys are doing at Star Harbor. So congrats on that.
Thank you. And I really agree, especially for, the short duration missions, the suborbital hops and whatnot. I think, it's even in some cases more critical to have that, for instance, a microgravity flight experience prior to that mission, so that, you're not spending your 3-4 minutes in awe of being weightless, as opposed to, because you can do that in the back of a plane. You want to spend that time looking out the window. That's what you're there for. I do think that the training is, and having some of these, lead up experience to set expectations and, sort of get the the floaties, out of your system, so that you can really focus on the prize, which is the view, is really important.
I almost believe that Blue Origin should incentivize the clients not to unbuckle, like really to stay in their seat, so that they can really take the time to look out the window first. Because, like you said, I mean, the zero gravity can be replicated on Earth, um, but the view that you can't. So if you're gonna pay that much money, go up. And I totally support what you said earlier about the billionaires. It's always been the cycle of innovation and technology, whether it's credit at the bank. I mean, for for a long time, no one could get a credit at the bank unless you were already rich and didn't need the credit. And then, at one point it became more accessible. Clothes, the same thing. Cars, any new technology is always a journey of adaptation, where at the beginning it doesn't make sense to make it, and only the rich people can pay for it's almost pay for pleasure, but that the payment funds the development behind it. So it's no different. It's just that I think that today has become, and I prefer anyone who's going to spend that kind of money to go to space than to buy just a yacht or book a hotel for 20 days and it costs the same amount of money. So that for me is a lot better invested than personal gratification.
Yeah, I think, and I think, like you mentioned William Shatner, and I think there's a number of other individuals who are having these experiences, and coming back and speaking about it, and the enthusiasm they have for Earth, for home, having viewed it from that standpoint, and I think we get enough of those folks, we actually might be able to really have a powerful positive impact, because I do think that we're facing some serious challenges going forward, both on the societal front, but on the climate front in particular, which is just going to exacerbate all the other issues that people are experiencing. And we've got to get the affluent to make a larger stance, I think, than is happening right now.
Yeah, that's often, I mean, from me, from my days of solo wilderness expeditions, these places of these challenging places are there, first of all, to make you develop the tools or the skills that you need to, to navigate this complexity. They also force you to reassess how you want to move forward. Is that a good decision to go this way or not? But also they makes you appreciate what you have, what you have at home or in other places. I think that a lot of people that do enjoy nature forget that they enjoy nature because they live in a city and then they can go and enjoy that place. Because living in nature is not for everyone. It's actually a really rough. I mean, nature is not there to satisfy your needs or just make sure that you're comfortable. Nature is a rough environment, and the reason why we live in cities is because it's tough to live out there. But to enjoy it, to be able to take the car, go back, and appreciate just the positive of it, that's how we're able to enjoy it. And I think it's going to be the same thing with the planet. And the sooner that we can get our resources off planet, the sooner that we can do a lot of things that is damaging for the Earth off planet. The planet is going to become more like, I don't want to say it's going to solve all the problems, but it will turn the Earth more into a garden, a city garden, where we can use it more to beautify for our own living rather than for the extraction of what we need. But from the perspective of Star Harbor, you're going to prepare basically the future in negotiating all the experience of the space for the benefit of the Earth, I assume, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also, the technologies that you're talking about, taking manufacturing off planet, asteroid mining, there's, all kinds of things that are being explored right now. And like you said, the more of that can be handled in space, where, all of that pollution and whatnot, can be tolerated in ways that it cannot be here at home, I think is going to be critical going forward. We can't keep doing what we've been doing and expect that we're not going to be paying the price at some point. So we got to get smarter.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it is the success of the human species that every time that we've pushed those limits and we found those ceilings, we've realized the consequences and we move, we go beyond. I think that the history is just this continuation of building over these things that we didn't think was an issue until they become an issue, right? And I think that's also how nature works. It doesn't really plan ahead saying, oh, like it just kind of throws a bunch of things on the wall to see what works and what doesn't work. And then if it doesn't, then it goes into a different direction. But, no one, even back in the days of the invention of plastic, no one thought that plastic would be an issue in the future. They actually thought it would save the planet. But then I guess the scale of it and some of the unintended consequences, I'm always reminded of it, the city of Chicago, where the city started as a village, and then they didn't think of building a sewage, because why build a sewage for a small place? But the city grew so fast that it became a problem. It became a problem, and they ignored the problem for a long time because now the investment is too much. But there was one big outbreak of cholera that really kind of tipped the scale, and now like they could not avoid it. So literally they raised the city, and then they created the sewage, and then they reversed the flow of the river, so now it would not go into the Great Lakes, but it would go in. And they did it. Chicago now is one of the biggest cities, and then the economy. So we have the capacity, but I think that there needs to be an incentive for people to spend the energy and the effort and the commitment, because when usually you're too comfortable, your predominant attitude is kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy, and forget it, and forget that relationship that you have with the environment. So, I mean, with the project that you have, and I think with all the people that I talk to, I would be really surprised that we don't come out on the more positive note, because there's so many people with so much energy and effort and ideas and innovation and just what you're doing, and the fact that you're getting funded and you can build those visions prove that there's a momentum, there's an energy, and there's a will to get that done. And it must be so inspiring from your end, right?
It is. I mean, look, we would not be doing this if we didn't think we were going to be able to win the game, right? I have two children. My son's 14, my daughter's 17. I worry for them. I worry about the future that's being created, and I am entirely committed to making sure that our worst fears don't come to life. Like you said, human innovation is a remarkable thing. We seem to pull out of emergency situations on a fairly regular basis, and I think one of my mentors once said the universe, when you're committed, the universe will give you the solution that you're looking for, but only and always in the nick of time. And I feel like I feel like this is definitely one of those things where it's going to feel like we are coming right up to the precipice, and if I didn't think that we had the ability to rescue ourselves, then there would be no reason for Star Harbor. I mean, our purpose is to get the solutions, bring them online, and get them working as quickly as possible, so that we can have a positive, healthy, vibrant future. So yeah, I think we can do it. I also think it's we've got a pretty daunting task in front of us, but if I didn't think we could get there, then I wouldn't be here.
Well, you've done an amazing job convincing that you can, because you had Sign Proctor on board, you got Ron Garin, and then you have a whole team of advisors that are really, they're behind that vision. Now, if people want to learn more and want to, not too sure that you're already accepting applications, but if they want to sign up for a newsletter so that when it's ready, where do they go?
Sure. Easiest place is to go to our website, starharboracademy.com. And on there, you'll see all of our social media links. And there's also a place where you can sign up to get any email updates.
Well, we'll make sure we put all the links in the description, and links to your LinkedIn and Instagram. And I don't know if you have TikTok, but whatever is on the website, we'll make sure that they're there. All right. It was a pleasure. This is so exciting. I can't wait to see the Academy.
Me too.
And yeah, makes me want to go back to school now.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
You take really good care, and I will see you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.